Tyler Gibson, welcome to the Build to Rent Network. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here.
I wanted to have you on because you said something to me a couple years ago that maybe annoyed me at the time, but it stuck with me. And I found myself, about a couple months ago at a bit of a rough patch where I wanted to grow, I wanted to accelerate, and I was a little bit frustrated at the progress that I was making. And just that comment you made to me kind of still stood out, right? It still bothered me a little bit. So I went ahead and gave you a call, and then I realized that you made some changes as well, and it was a good chance for us to kind of catch up. And so as I'm about to announce a big change for myself and my team and everything that we're working on and all the plans that we have, I thought that there was no one better to have on this podcast to make that announcement. And also, we have a lot in common that I think our audience today is going to get a lot of value of. Some of the things we have in common is obviously we became an investor first, and then we transitioned over to be an investor-based agent, right? An agent that helps a lot of investors out. And then we've grown our team over the years to now become very succinct to providing a lot of value to our investors. Tyler, can we start with kind of your origin? Do you remember your first time that you realized that real estate investing even made sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really vivid to me. And I think I remember what it was that I said a couple of years ago that kind of bothered you. So I'd be curious to know if you're thinking of the same thing that I am. But, to tell the story succinctly and kind of quickly, my dad bought homes whenever we moved, and we moved a lot when I was a kid. And he would always try to keep that house after he had purchased it, and he would keep it as a rental property. And we never really talked about why he was doing that or the power of real estate to build wealth long-term for people. But it was a behavior that I noticed, right? It was a pattern of behavior that I noticed and I took note of. And so after my wife and I got married, we already owned our own home. And I came home one day and said, hey, I think we should buy a rental property. I had recently gotten a promotion at work, and so I was making a little bit more money. She had a stable salary job. And she just said, sounds good. And so I called my real estate agent and I told her that we'd like to look for something, within 2 miles of where we lived. And here's my price point. This was back in 2015. The market was very, very different at the time. But I think we went and saw like 4 properties together. And that fourth one, I was like, I think this will work. And so I actually had the benefit of my father having some capital at the time. And so he actually became the bank for me and helped me acquire this 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow that's near downtown Orlando. I live in Orlando. And we went ahead and bought it. And I put a tenant in it. And, I did all the things you shouldn't do as a new investor. I had no idea what the rents would actually be. I had not calculated my expenses, but I just got lucky. Ignorance was bliss and fortune favors the bold, all of that. I was fortunate that I still own that property today and it still works. It cash flows great. But I remember that first month when we got the rent paid, the person put it in our mailbox. And so I went out to the mailbox and I got $1,000 check in my mailbox. And the idea of just getting money for doing nothing was so exhilarating. I was so excited about that rent check. I remember going inside, telling my wife, we got $1,000 and I didn't do anything. And she said, well, we didn't make $1,000. Totally burst my bubble. And explained to me about the expenses and everything. And I knew that all that was there, but, I said, you're killing my buzz. I said, we got $1,000. I didn't say we made $1,000. But anyways, from that point forward, I was hooked on the idea of passive income and cash flow. And so I really just started researching, right? I didn't know what I didn't know at that point in time. So I wanted to start by just finding a way that I could better analyze opportunities, right? I figured if I found a good deal, I could probably find somebody with money that would invest in it with me. And so I really wanted to figure out, how do I find a good deal? And so I started Googling for like an analyzer tool for rental properties. And that actually led me to biggerpockets.com, which is the world's largest real estate investor forum. Now they actually have calculators on the site that people can use, but back then they didn't. And so somebody had put an Excel spreadsheet in the forums. And so that's how I had found it. I still have that spreadsheet today. I don't use it as much. I've got a better tool now, but that's how I found it. And I found they had a podcast. And so I just started listening to the podcast religiously. I traveled a lot for work at the time. I had a 40-minute commute when I was here one way. And so I was just learning as much as I possibly could. We did end up finding a deal through a wholesaler that I brought my parents along on the journey. We invested in that today. together. We still own that asset together today. And my parents and I continued to buy properties together. And usually the scenario was I was the muscle, right? I was the hustle. I was the boots on the ground, the person looking for the deals, contacting people, managing repairs and things of that nature. And they were basically the money involved in the transactions. And so we did that, acquired some more properties. And then in 2018, I found out I was going to be a father. The end of 2018, found out I was going to be a father. Going into 2019, I decided, I don't know that I want to trade my time for money forever. I got a new job working where I didn't travel as much because I didn't want to be gone 26 weeks a year like I was at the time, and wanted to be a more present father. And so I started a new job, didn't have nearly as much responsibility. The demand for my time was much, much lower. And so I figured, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and get a real estate license. And really the goal was to have access to the MLS, to get better data, to try to find deals really for me and my family to invest in, to grow our portfolio and grow our wealth. And I was just going to stay in my job. And if I sold a house here or there to friends or family, that'd be great. It'd help me buy more properties. I wasn't really thinking about quitting my job. And then I sold the first house and I was like, wow, that was a lot of fun. When I made $6,000, I don't even think I made $6,000. I think I made like $4,000 after paying my broker. But I was like, that was fun. And wow, this is cool. And so I started thinking, well, how do I do more of this? How do I sell more homes? And I don't know if anyone, I got licensed October 2019. I don't know if you remember what happened like the first part of 2020, but the world shut down, right? COVID happened. And so I sold my first house, the first quarter of 2020. And I was stoked about it. Also, I thought it was funny that I was an essential person with a real estate license, and so I could run around and go show homes. But I really started to focus on how do I sell more homes. Since I was an investor and I had already been active on the Bigger Pockets forums as a participant in the forums, I really focused my energy on that. You can set up keyword alerts so you know when people are talking about your marketplace. And I really just interacted with people, answered questions, and offered to be a resource for them here. And from that, I started to get more opportunities to sell homes. I also started to invest in lead generation through Bigger Pockets and really used that as the backbone. And so all of 2020 and 2021, I continued to be dual career. I was working doing real estate, and I was also working in a full-time corporate America job. And then in the summer of 2021, I happened to land an account with Wedgwood, which is a large hedge fund flipper here in the United States, and started working with them where they were making a lot of offers and they were letting me list the properties on the other side of it. And so I actually hired my wife as a transaction coordinator because I couldn't keep up with everything. And then I also hired my first agent to be on my team. And he would actually been a 20-year agent. So he had 10 times more experience than me, is what I told people. But essentially, I had more opportunities than I could handle at the time, given that I was still constrained to a full-time job. And so he really helped me do that. And then I stepped out of my full-time job in October of 2021. So it took me exactly 2 years to transition to full-time real estate. And then we brought on another agent in January of 2022. That agent is still on my team today. He's a part-time agent, meaning that he has a full-time job, but he was also a real estate investor. He had his own rental properties. And so he understood, kind of the niche clientele that I was working with and focusing on, which are people that are interested in investing in real estate here in Central Florida. And then, since then, we've just continued to grow and try to focus our service on helping people that want to invest in this market, or at the very least, helping people that have a mentality of growing their personal wealth through real estate. And so that comes in the forms of people that want to invest, but also people that are just looking to get into their first home. And usually those people that we work with are doing house hacking, which is where you live in a portion of the property and rent a portion of the property. And so we've really niched in on that. And that's what we still do today, even after all that time. And we continue to be heavily involved in the Bigger Pockets community as a result.
Yeah, I think we start off about the same type of way. I think the thing that stood out is being bold first and then getting better over time. And a lot of investors almost have it backwards. They almost want to research forever. You want to research enough so that you can take action, but you don't want to be in this coma state of constantly doing research. I always say you want to get on first base. And so by buying that property, you got on first base. And most times when you analyze a deal, if you're looking at everything, right? The tax benefits, the debt pay down, the cash flow, and the appreciation, you're going to be up almost regardless, right? So it's more about like, how do you get on first base? Then you improve from there. And I had a very similar story. I worked for a Fortune 500 company, worked for several of them, and I was traveling on the road all the time. I grew up, flipping homes with my father, doing the rehabs with him. And he was a first generation immigrant who was just winging it. I was just this free laborer. That's what I was. But you would learn about like, man, if my father, who's a first generation immigrant, can start building a portfolio, can start being active like this, and I have the massive opportunity to improve on whatever system he has, I can be wildly successful. And so I flipped my way out of a job, which was good. We got to the point where we paid off all of our debts, I had 3 years worth of income sitting on the sidelines. And that's when I decided to quit my job after. And similar to yourself, I got a real estate license for my own deals. And then like somebody from church would need help and I would do that. Somebody else needed help. I would help them out and I would just share my journey. I would document what I was doing. I'll tell people what I was up to. And then people wanted more help. And Tyler, I want to understand from your perspective of when your pivot happened, when you realized, okay, if I'm going to work with investors, I have to treat them differently. I can't treat them the same way. For me, it was basically allowing investors to basically drive me around and have me do all this work for them. And then I realized I got to put the value in the front end of the relationship. I can't be a soldier or just someone doing work for someone else, because then they'll just drive me crazy and they'll probably, not close a deal anyway. So for me, I had to pivot and realize I got to put the value on the front end. And a lot of that had to actually building my own inventory that I've had for my investors. And then when they ask, hey, Alvin, what do you got? I can show them in a whole inventory, right, of what we have for our investors. Tyler, can you remember a time where like you had to almost like pivot in the way that you treated your investors?
Well, I certainly remember one of the early investors that I started working with who told me he wanted to do fix and flips. And I remember investing a ton of time and showing him several properties. I think I went out for 3 weekends in a row and we saw like 15 properties. And he kept telling me that he was going to make these super lowball offers. And I'm like, I don't think that's going to work. I mean, these people weren't in distress. I think he ended up making one offer on a property that was a short sale and his offer got declined. So that was a big eye opener for me. And I think for me, I just realized that wasn't the specific clientele that I wanted to service. I really wanted to focus on people that were interested in long-term rentals or short-term rentals because that was what I knew. I wasn't really pivoting from working with retail buyers because I had never worked with retail buyers before. I almost jumped immediately into working investors. It was simply because that's what I knew, right? And I didn't realize that was actually making me really, really unique. I didn't realize that other real estate agents didn't understand real estate investing in any way. But once I started to understand that, it really helped me shift my perspective. Every time I spoke with a potential investor, instead of it being a sales call, it became a discovery call. I really just wanted to understand who they were, what their goals were, where they were trying to go. And then I would position myself as I can help you get there. Right? I have local knowledge. I have resources locally that I can get you connected with so I can make the daunting idea of investing remotely, because most of my clients are out of state, very easy for you. And I can be your boots on the ground. But the real value is that I understand the local market. I can point you to where there's going to be growth or where the best potential purchase price to rent ratios exist. And that was really my value proposition. I'm an investor. I understand the market. I have resources that I can connect you with. And so that's what really helped me transition into focusing on real estate investors and making that kind of the core of my business. We help everybody.
Yeah, that's a very important thing.
Core. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important because obviously, if you're a real estate agent and you want to help investor, I would say you have to have a very strong value proposition and you have to lean into that. That has to be your starting thing. Because otherwise, your default setting is being a hard worker, which is, as an agent, you don't want to be known or branded as a hard worker because an investor is going to use you up like crazy because they don't see you as having any other value besides throwing a lowball offer, besides driving around the neighborhood. And keep in mind, an investor has the right, he has the obligation to do whatever it takes to get them the best deal possible. So if it's wasting all of your time, they're going to be happy to do that, right? That's their obligation to their bottom line to do that. And so, but if you start with value, if you are the local knowledgeable expert and you can say, hey, we're going to cross out this whole region. We're going to just not look at this area. Here's where you want to focus in on. I've already pre-pulled a couple of properties that have a good rent to price ratio. We can start from here and then we can shortchange to like maybe a possible 10, narrow it down from there. But if you're just putting the investor in charge, he's going to run you around like crazy. And that's why, we're a little bit different where I don't do anything on the market. Like somebody else can help you with an on the market deal. That's not what we do, right? That's not what I do at Built Around. I'm very much into having a marketplace, and then I sell the inventory in my marketplace. And for me, that helps make sure that I shortchange the amount of dialogue we're having. One of my value propositions, I want to help the investor identify the property as quickly as possible. That's my goal. That's my mantra every single time. Tyler, but I want to kind of learn more about your business. Can you kind of walk me through kind of like as an agent trying to maybe partner with you or learn from you? What are some of the common mistakes that you see them do? And then what is it that what would be a good indicators when they have to change or pivot?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is that agents that are going to partner with us have to understand the difference between being a real estate agent and being an investor advisor. And that's really what we are. We're investor advisors. We're not financial planners, but we don't give financial advice. When it comes to real estate, I understand it really well. And it's as much about educating people. Some of our investors are more sophisticated than others. I work with a lot of newer investors that are just starting. So part of what we try to do is help them understand everything incorporated with why investing in real estate can be one of the most powerful things for you as an individual, for your family, for your legacy. And so when when agents come and start to partner with us, it's trying to help them understand that, right? Oftentimes, most of the time, brokers do not teach this part of real estate to their agents, right? What they're teaching is how to cold call, how to do open houses, how to do all of that stuff. And so for us, we want to teach them the wealth game, because if they can understand the wealth game, then they have a much better advantage over their peers because they understand how to actually create wealth, not just commissions through real estate. And then they can take that and add that value to everyone else in their life. I mean, how powerful is it to be able to walk up to one of your friends or family and say, hey, who do you know that might want to, add some wealth, add to their net worth? Most people will go, I do, right? Okay, well, I can teach you how, right? And most agents don't do that. All they can do is, who do you know that's moving, right? And the most powerful thing about working with real estate investors is that real estate investors buy in every market, a buyer's market, a seller's market, a down market, an up market. They buy in any market. They don't care about market conditions. They care about getting a good deal. That's it. That's all they care about. They don't care about market conditions. And investors don't buy one house. They buy one a year, at least, usually, right? Or one every 2 years. And so for that reason, when we get new people that join our team, what we want them to understand is the wealth game, right? We tell them, go read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, there's other resources education that we want them to go out and get for themselves and understand so that they have the same kind of mindset or mentality that our clientele are coming when they come to us, and that they understand a lot of the terminology. They understand what cash on cash return stands for, or OR, return, the acronym. Anyways, there's a bunch of acronyms in real estate. Some of them are slipping my mind, but knowing what those acronyms mean, knowing what the term house hack means. So educating them about some of the language that investors are going to use because they use a different language, and then helping them to speak that language back to them, and which helps to build trust that you are the person that actually knows what you're doing.
Yeah, and there's so few real estate agents that actually understand the investor's world and what they're trying to accomplish. So it's very difficult for them to actually help them save time or point them in the right direction. And if you are that investor-friendly agent, it's a breath of fresh air for the investor. The investor knows immediately after a few just seconds of talking to you, oh, this person's different, feels so much better. I remember when this was when I was an investor and not an agent, and I would talk with an agent And someone would say, so you're looking for a duplex? I was like, yeah, I'm looking for a duplex. And they would say, okay, cool. Well, like, give me the age, give me the, and I'll send you a list of properties. And it's just like, like in today's day and age, the investor has access to all the property information that you have. Like the MLS is not this like sacred thing that they need access to anymore. It's not, it's your knowledge, it's your ability to listen, it's your ability to provide value throughout the transaction that actually is what the investor is looking for.
Yeah.
And so you can't rely on just sending someone a list. That's useless in today's world. But I do want to ask you something, because I'll reveal what you told me a couple years ago that kind of frustrated me, but I'll set it up a little bit. So I'm a very career driven kind of person. I like to go up the ladder. And I remember talking to my son. He was kind of learning about my business, and he asked me, "Hey, so like, what's your actual title?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm an agent. Right? I work with investors. I'm an agent." And he asked me, and he told me, what's above an agent? And I was like, well, above an agent would be a broker. And he asked me, why aren't you a broker? And that bothered me, right? It got me to, you know what? You're right. I should be a broker. That's a logical next step. And I became a broker. I added some people to my team, and I had a conversation with you. We were talking about something differently. And I told you that I was a broker. And he was like, being a broker doesn't make any sense. You want to be a team manager, right? You want to be a team leader. Being a broker is just pointless to do that. And I was like, in my head, I was like, all right, well, like, clearly you're not a broker, so you wouldn't know. But it bothered me. And then I found myself about a year and a half later at a point where I wanted to expand outside of Florida. And then I was like, well, do I get a broker in every state that I want to expand into? I also kind of analyzed, I do this every single year, where I analyze all the things that I'm working on and what I really should be focusing on, what someone else should be doing, and what nobody should be doing. And when I broke everything down, all the things that I should not be doing were all the broker stuff. It wasn't a good use of my time. And it became abundantly clear that, like, if I want to grow to every state in the country, if I want to prioritize my time and the things that actually drive the most value, it's actually not doing all the broker activities that I was doing, all the compliance, all the commission checks, all of that kind of stuff. It had no value to anybody. Anybody could do that. But yet I would spend a lot of time doing it. And so I've reached out to you because you planted that seed in me. And then you told me that you had switched, you went from EXP to LPT. Tyler, can you kind of walk me through why you decided to make that switch? And then I'll let you know what I decided to do with regards to our conversation.
Yeah. I think my exact words were, why would you ever want to be the broker? I think that was exactly what I said to you 2 years ago. Because people had asked me that question, right? What are you ever going to be a broker? And I had by that point, I'd come to the realization, no, I will likely never be the broker, because I didn't want to deal with the back end, the compliance, the accounting, all of that stuff that's super, super important in the business, but that to me feels daunting and heavy and not fun. And I only want to do the stuff that I find fun, right? And so I had been running my team, my business at EXP Realty, which is a large cloud brokerage. They're in all 50 states. It's corporately owned, not franchised. And part of the reason why I moved my business there in the first place was because it gave me the ability to scale. I could add agents to my team in any state because the broker was already there. I could be licensed in multiple states and have one commission cap or one set of fees across all states. And so to me, that was really, really appealing. And I was there for 3 years, two-time icon, which puts me in the top 2% of their 90,000 agents globally in terms of production. And so I had done well, and they had done well for me. And honestly, I had told people I'd never leave. I had. And about 3 years ago, LPT Realty came on the scene. It was actually founded here in Orlando by a local Orlando businessman who has $100 million net worth. Incredible entrepreneur and businessman. And I thought it was a fad. I didn't think it would last. I felt like they were a copycat. I also had some preconceived notions about who he was and his motivations behind it. And so I just kind of left it all by the wayside. But a little while ago, I found myself questioning what was going on. I saw all the success that LPT was having. I saw some pretty big names making moves over to that brokerage, and actually a local guy that I know here who does quite a bit of sales, he was actually making the move. And I was curious why he was going. And he was moving from EXP to LPT. And ultimately, as I started to look at it, what I found is that it was very, very similar in nature. And I personally view brokerages as a business platform, right? That's the way that I see it. Like Airbnb is the business platform for short-term rentals. I think brokerages are the business platform for real estate agents to run their business, right? We're all independent contractors. We all basically are entrepreneurs running our own small businesses just on a brokerage platform. And so that's the way that I viewed them. And as I started to look at the LPT platform, I just saw that it was a better mousetrap. It was a better platform for me to build my business with fewer costs and what I found to be a better culture. I mean, the leader here, Robert Palmer, his vision is to help each and every entrepreneur at LPT Realty achieve their individual definition of success. And so between that, some of the incredible tools that they offer, and as well as just being able to actually reduce some of my costs within my business, it seemed like a no-brainer for me to make the move. And so we're coming up on a year. It'll be a year at the end of March that we've been here. And I can't say enough about how happy I've been to be here. The staff here is extremely supportive, and it's super easy to get the help that you need, which I know is a big concern for a lot of people when they hear the word cloud broker, because you're used to being able to drive to an office and knock on somebody's door and get an answer. Well, I like the fact that I don't have to drive anywhere. I can just go online, open a ticket, and typically get a response that day or the day after. And if it's if it's really, really an emergency, there's 6 brokers, I think, here in the state of Florida, and I can just pick up the phone and call and definitely get somebody on the phone that can help me with my situation. And so ultimately, it was about being able to scale, reducing my costs, increasing profit, and then having a platform that was attractive not only to me, the team leader, but also to my agents. It benefited them as well. And I think that that's our job as a leader, is to not just think about ourselves and our own profit margins, but what's going to be the best thing for my people, the people that are on my team, because without them, I don't have a team. And so I really have to look out for them. And I just felt like LPT was going to be the best place for me and them. And ultimately, my team agreed, since every single one of them came with me when we decided to make the move.
Yeah, very similar story on my end. So as you're approaching your 1-year anniversary, I'm actually going to be announcing right here live. Well, this is recorded, but you know what I mean. Right here that I'm actually leaving my brokerage to join LPT. And so for me, I like that it's a clean slate. So one of the things about a brick and mortar brokerage is all of those costs, the insurance of the building, the water, the heating, all of this, it's a cost, and it has to be made up somewhere. And so I'm the kind of person that I have my own core competencies. I can't get a core competency from anywhere else, including a brokerage. I have to develop that. There are unique skill sets, unique attributes that I have that I need to provide value to my investors. They don't come from my brokerage. So LPT will not make me successful. EXP or anybody else won't make you successful. You have to be the difference maker. And so for me, it's straight up that they're just not in my way, right? The costs are not in my way. They're not burdensome. From a branding perspective, I have a good amount of flexibility. You have to mention LPT, but it's not like it's a big burdensome thing. And I have a clean platform. And so I also think about it like when I'm recruiting someone, I want to make my pitch as easy as possible when bringing someone on board. So when I can say 100% commission, it's like, oh, that's what they get, right? It's clean, simple, and it makes sense. It's a no-brainer for for an agent to join a team like mine, so that it's zero commission and it's super clean and easy. And also as a team leader, I still provide the same values that I would if I was a broker. All the workshops that we do, all the not hands-on, but digital trainings that we provide, all the meetings that we run, all the one-on-one coaching sessions, those are still available. They don't go away. But the key is now if I have to recruit someone in Texas, California, Alaska, or even most of the provinces in Canada, I can recruit them and they can seamlessly fall into our system. And I think just like that is the no-brainer for me. And again, I'm someone that likes to dream big. I'm going for 100 agents this year, and I'm thinking like, what can I get 100 agents to join our team as quickly as possible? For me, LPT was the clear winner from that perspective.
Yeah. Well, and congratulations. I'm so excited.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm excited as well. It was a big deal. And it's worth noting, Tyler, that I spent probably like a year and a half wrestling with the idea of growing and expanding. And a couple of things just kind of like screamed out to me was one, I was not going to hire a broker for every single state. You and I both know this. In real estate, they runs a very high failure rate. And you just like to try to get someone up to speed to manage your brokerage in a whole new state, it would have been riddled with problems. Plus, it would have been a cost with the licensing fees and everything. It would have been burdensome. So the LPT was just a clear slam dunk. But Tyler, I want to kind of wrap up today's call with talking about kind of the growth plans that you have and that I have. I just kind of give agents that are possibly listening to this conversation, thinking about like, how do I add value? How do I figure out what my path is to help more investors out? Can you walk us through some of your growth plans and kind of how an investor-friendly agent can kind of learn from you and maybe possibly partner with you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm actually open to partnering with agents of all different strategies and levels of experience, right? My goal as a team leader is to help agents develop the skills they need or build a path where they can achieve whatever their goals are. There's lots of different ways to get there. Sometimes it's a matter of building skills. Sometimes it's a matter of learning how to create more leverage in your life or in your business. And so that's what we offer to agents that join our team. I can teach you how to build wealth because I can teach you the wealth game because I'm doing it myself. If that's what an agent wants, if they're brand new, I can give them the skills or at least the words that they can use to go start talking to their friends and family to potentially generate business there, as well as teach them how to do open houses and other things that could potentially bring them business. And then for experienced agents that don't necessarily need more business, but maybe they don't have a life because all they do is business, right? And they're doing all their paperwork. They're keeping track of all of their files. They're uploading everything. They're doing it all. And they're doing well at the expense of their child's baseball game, at the expense of date night, whatever it may be. And I don't think that you have to give up that personal stuff to be successful in real estate. You can have it all. You can have your cake and eat it too. You just have to learn how to create leverage and delegate. And you can do that through technology. You can do that through people. And so we can help people build leverage, or they can plug into our leverage systems. Agents that are on my team don't fill out purchase contracts. They don't fill out paperwork. It's not the best use of their time. If you're good at connecting with people, what you should be doing all day is connecting with people. Somebody wants to make an offer? Great. You should send us the information and then check your email and make sure it's right. And then just press OK. That's the system that we've built here at the GPG team to help empower agents, help their friends, their family, their clients at a high level and still have a life so that you get a phone. You can be at the event. You don't have to pull out your laptop. You can be there, be present. All you got to do is send a message. Hey, I need this done. And somebody from our team on the back end will make sure that it gets done so that you can stay there in the moment with what's most important to you, your family.
Having a team of people that have a unique role in making everything go together is the key. I think the idea of being an individual agent outside of a team, it doesn't make sense in today's world anymore. I think partnering with the right people, having a team, and again, you want to figure out like, what do I actually want to accomplish and how do I accomplish that as efficiently as possible? But with that said, Tyler, I do want to thank you for your time. If you want to get more information on Tyler, you can actually find him at the Build to Rent Network. He has a profile there set up and you can connect with him directly there. Thank you guys and take care.